Hello and welcome to the Advanced Splunk Dashboarding Showcase with me, Dan Gray. I'm a qualified Splunk architect with Somerford Associates. I've been working here for a year now, and prior to that I was in the Royal Navy for 8 years where I worked as a computer network analyst. So who is Somerford? A specialist in everything Splunk, and we are an elite partner for license and professional services. We also offer workshops and webinars such as this. And if you're a customer of ours, you have access to the dedicated technical support desk. So what's the agenda of this webinar? So we're going to learn to make smart and interactive dashboards of real data that are appealing, that will help us graphically illustrate our IT operations data using complex graphs and charts. But really what we're going to do is we're going to make simple, effective dashboards that communicate what you want to communicate across to the end user. We're going to try and take dashboards from this, which is an example of a bad dashboard that I've made. It's very cluttered, not very colorful. It's really unclear what's going on. At first look, there's some information in there. We can see that stuff's happening, actions, products are being viewed and removed from carts, and stuff's happening. Really ineffective graphs, no axes, no labels. Tables are not formatted correctly. Really not a good example of an effective communication of the data that sits behind this dashboard. We're going to try and take it from that to something a little bit more like this. This is using the same data, however, hopefully it's a little bit more illustrative of what's going on. We've got revenue, we've got graphs, we've got tables, single value figures, and a bit of color in there that makes it a little bit more digestible. But before we are able to make a dashboard, we have to get started with Splunk. If you've never used Splunk before, it's really straightforward to get going. Head to the website and make an account, download the latest version of Splunk Enterprise, install it, and then add data, and away you go. When I say add data, anything that's human readable, Splunk can ingest and make sense of, whether that's the logs from your own PC that you're logging in, or you can get data sets online, such as the New York taxi companies. They publish information about taxi journeys. EVE Online, the computer game, you can get data dumps from activities that have happened in the game to help you play around with Splunk if you've not got access to a large computer network or another data source. There's resources out there online where you can take data and get it into Splunk and then start learning and playing around with it. Once you've installed Splunk, this is what you'll be faced with. This is the homepage. Looks a little bit different in version 9, but all the same features are there. Product tours, really straightforward navigation through the GUIs of whichever product you've downloaded. Adding data, the most important button. This is where you really start getting anything out of Splunk, is by adding different data sources. As I said, it has to be human readable, but you can take network information, logs, events, and metrics. Splunk apps, that will take you to Splunk Base, a website, the repository of apps. And in Splunk, apps means it's a bundle of configuration files. There are apps for numerous different products. If you want to ingest a data source, the first place to look is on Splunk Base and see if someone's done the hard work for you already. And then finally, Splunk Docs. It's the documentation for Splunk. Really well maintained, organized, and makes sense. If there's something that you'd like to do in Splunk, it's very likely that you'll be able to find out how to do it by looking through the Splunk documentation. But this webinar is about dashboards, so how do we make a dashboards? So click on the dashboard button primarily, and then next button you will click is create dashboards, and you will be faced with this pop-up here. This is where you set the parameters for the dashboard you're making. So things that you need to fill in are the dashboard title, the permissions, whether they're using classic dashboards or Dashboard Studio. In this webinar, we'll be using Dashboard Studio. Classic Dashboard and Dashboard Studio have different functionalities. Dashboard Studio is the newer version, the newer offering by Splunk, and they're working to catch up with some of the functionality from Classic Dashboards. Dashboard Studios also has extra functionality that you can't get in Classic Dashboards, and as I said, this webinar will be using Dashboard Studio, so we'll see some of the functions and settings and stuff that we can use that are exclusive to Dashboard Studio. And finally, absolute or grid layout mode. What that means will be really much more obvious once we get into editing the dashboard. But as it says there, if you choose absolute layout, you get full control of where you want to place your panels, whereas grid snaps to location. But before you do that, start with a plan. Before making any dashboard, you want to go to your end user or your customer, or if it's working on your own behalf, have a good think about what you want this dashboard to show. This is a really quick one that I knocked up in Microsoft Paint. However, this is the sort of thing that I'd like to receive from a customer. At this point, I'm not particularly interested in what sort of Splunk queries they want to run in the background. What I want to know is what do they want their dashboard to show, and leave it up to me to figure out how to make that work. So on the left, we have a hospital dashboard, high-level overview, info about number of patients, records per hour, and detailed view. And a couple of notes on the bottom: make it look sleek, include color coding. And on the right, a car factory example. So if we keep those two plans in our mind as we go through, we're going to see those materialize to life. But as I said, at this point, I don't want to know about the data that powers these dashboards, nor the Splunk searches that we'll need to run to get it working. I really want to know what the customer wants out of their dashboard. Once you've got that, perhaps counterintuitively, the first thing that I suggest you do when making a dashboard is add a background. The background can really provide the skeleton of your dashboard, and it can really add context to the data. So here are a couple of dashboards that we have: pre-populated, perfectly fine dashboards, not too busy, quite colorful, well labeled and make sense. But they can be taken to the next level by adding a dashboard, and we'll see how just now. So here we have the left dashboard without the background. As we transition to the background, as we had in our plan, it's hospital theme dashboard. And we can see that these lines that are connecting up the data, these are part of the background. So the color, the lines and the boxes are all part of the background image. And we can really see how that adds context to the data that we're presenting. Next, we have a car factory. So instead of the bare panels, we can arrange those panels into along the background that makes sense, and at a glance we can see that this is to do with production lines and where the data sits on that production line, so where the problems may occur. So to do that, how to add a background, here we have our view after we've created a new dashboard. We'll be looking over here, create a background image. So you can drag and drop an image file and it will upload and be populated into your dashboard, or else you can add a URL. Out of the box, there's a number of configured whitelisted URLs that Splunk will use to populate backgrounds, and those are all Splunk related. If you have a website like we do, Somerford Associates, you'll have to whitelist that website in able to get your image populating your dashboards. So here I've used the URL, that one of the Splunk ones, and here's a good point to bring in some context to this webinar. We'll be using data that's themed around a company called Buttercup Games. This is the Buttercup Games background. Buttercup Games sell all sorts of different things, nerdy apparel, games, and things associated with those. And we'll see the theme of that as we go through the dashboard. So we've added the background. and we can see now like the skeleton of what we want our dashboard to look like. It will help in when we're arranging our panels, where we want to put them. So how do we add our panels? Well, the first thing to think about is the best way to visualize the data that you are trying to present, whether that's going to be a pie chart or a table or a bar chart. The location of panels and orientation of panels, those go hand in hand. You want to try and tell a story, a logical story in your dashboard. Try and keep related things nearby and make it simple for the user to follow. Very importantly, don't overload with information. So how do we add a panel? So there's a few different ways. You can do it directly from the dashboard, but in this case, we are doing it from a search we've run. So search is not the topic of this webinar, so we won't dig too much into the search that we have run. Suffice to say that I've run a search here in Splunk and presented and ended up with a table. So what you need to do is you save as over here and save it as an existing dashboard. And then simple as find your dashboard, make sure it's ticked, and give it a panel title. It's there as optional. It's definitely best practice to give a panel title that really explains what that panel is going to do. And then press save to dashboard, and there we are. We've added our first panel to our dashboard. It's fine. We can see there we've got products, we've got purchases, and the revenue that we're generating off those products. But we might be able to improve it by using a few formatting options. So there's loads and loads of formatting options when you come in to make a panel, and dashboards themselves for that matter. Some of them are on the screen now. And when we go to the live portion of the webinar, where I go into some different dashboards, we'll have a look at some of the formatting options there. But for this case, here's the same table after using some formatting options. I've used color for the purchases to illustrate whether those are good numbers or bad numbers, and then added a couple of pound signs there as well, just to show that that's money. Next, adding more panels. So there's different types of panels that you can add. Some of the different formatting options. Choose your visualizations to suit the data. Panel titles, don't forget those. Chart type and the time range picker. That will show you how far back in time you want your dashboard to look. And drill downs is an advanced or a more advanced formatting option where you can set the behavior if you click on each panel, what that behavior will do. We'll talk about that more in a minute. So I've just chucked in a new panel, this time a pie chart. Continue to add panels to our dashboard. A few different visualization types now. We've got tables, we've got pie charts, and we've got a stacked bar chart. And finally down there on the bottom right, a single value. Don't forget to save your dashboard as you're going through. As we can see there, success, dashboard saved. Make sure you save your dashboard as you go along, because if you navigate away from it, you might lose your progress. Here we've added an image of the Somerford logo, because I wanted to illustrate the drill down mechanic that you can add to a dashboard. So how do we do that? So we click on the image in this case, or the panel or the object within the dashboard, and on the right hand side you'll get an options thing to configure your object. And in our case we're going to add a drill down, so there we go, drill down to add a drill down. And then you've got on-click options, so there's stuff such as link to another dashboard, link to a search, and you can decide whether you want that in a new tab or the tab that you're already in. In our case, we're going to link to a custom URL, so I've linked it there to the Somerford website. So when the end user is using this dashboard, if they click that image, they will navigate to the Somerford Associates website. I'll move on over now to the live portion of the demo, in which we're going to have a look at 3 different demo environments that we've spun up in Splunk that are populated with fake data, but there's a number of dashboards that we can have a look at, and we'll see some of the good and bad points of those dashboards. So the first one I've clicked into here, financial crime, is the theme of this dashboard. This is what I would say the executive summary page of this this environment, so the control room as it's called. Here we have a number of panels that are well labeled, so we can kind of tell what's going on at a glance. We can see different accounts there that are important, and a number of different visualizations. In these environments that Splunk's been up as demo, sometimes they use a visualization that might not be the most applicable to the data, but mainly because they want to just show off some of the different visualizations that are possible. But all in all, not a bad dashboard, I would say. At the top here, we could probably use a bit of color. Number of potential account takeovers, 21. Is that good? Is that bad? I'm not too sure. And again, they could have had trend lines. Are we going in the right direction or a bad direction? For this one, I wanted to show, pretty sure they've added the drill down. So that's going to open in a new tab. It'll bring us to the account takeover dashboard, enabling the analyst who will be using this to dive deeper into the account takeovers that are happening in this environment. Again, lots of high-level stats across the top. Are they good? Are they bad? It's not clear whether 858 is a good number or a bad number. So they could have a bit of color there and again a trend line. Here's one that we haven't touched on yet, mapping. You can add maps to Splunk, different types of maps, choropleth maps. Is this one, and you can see there it's connection from risky or unusual countries. So in your business, if you're expecting everyone to log in from the UK or perhaps America, and you're getting a bunch of login attempts from China, that's probably suspicious, maybe something to have a look at. As we scroll down, it's quite a large dashboard, but this I would expect would be more for the analyst who's actually working on it rather than someone looking for a high-level overview. We'll move on to the transaction fraud page. Here we are again, yeah. So it's similar sort of thing. High-level stats at the top, followed by a number of different visualizations. Chart here with a trend line on. Good use of different colors, I suppose. The one I really wanted to show off on this one was the risk model clustering. Takes a little while to load, and we'll see why once it actually loads. This, I think, in my opinion, is trying to be too clever. It looks really cool. We have a 3D model of a risk model that's moving in 3D space. So there's a third axis to this graph, and as I said, it looks super cool. It's different colors and different things, but it's not clear to me at all what this graph is trying to convey. So I guess the point I'm trying to make there is make sure that your end user understands. Don't go for cool points. Make sure that the end user understands what we're trying to get across. We'll jump out of the financial crime now into a separate environment. Back to Buttercup Games. This is a really good example of a dashboard, actually. I'm very impressed with this one. The reason I set this environment up is because it had a really good dashboard and a really bad dashboard, but they've removed the bad dashboard and they've left the good dashboard. So we'll give them some points and tips, or we'll talk about it a little bit. It's not too busy. This is the entirety of the dashboard, really good. So we can see customer locations. It's really obvious from the panel title and the map what's going on here. And then again, really straightforward use of color. The top country, and as you click through, it goes from yellow through to red. And the best thing about this dashboard here is this panel here. So they've used this panel as a way to pass a token through to the graphs below. So it's not really obvious because the numbers don't jump around too much. But as you click on each of these operating systems, the graphs below change so to reflect only that operating system. So we can see here Windows customers have this level of spending versus Linux customers who have that level of spending. It's a really cool advanced feature of the dashboard, using the panel to pass a token through, pass information down to other panels in the dashboard, and act as a very fancy filter. So reset it there back to all. The other dashboard in this environment is the site status dashboard. Again, really impressed with this one. Green and red, culturally we know what those signify. Green is good and red is bad. Again, not too busy. This is the entirety of the dashboard here. So we can see that the site status, well, we can see the site status at a really quick glance. Successful versus unsuccessful. And then we can see the types of errors here that are being reported. And we can see, again, the use of color, that the very deep red indicates that it's more severe. So again, very effective dashboard here. Simple use of color, simple number of panels. Even I, as a non-web developer, can see that what's going on here and what's good and what's bad. The final dashboard that we're going to have a look at, or the final environment that we're going to have a look at, is the InfoSec application and a series of dashboards that are built in there. The InfoSec app is a free app that you can download from Splunkbase. As I said before, apps are a bundle of configuration files that come pre-packaged along with a bunch of dashboards and searches that power those dashboards. You can download this from Splunkbase for free. All you need to provide is the data to power these dashboards, and it will work just as we're going to have a look at. The first one we're going to take a look at is the executive view. Here we can see a very high-level view of what's going on in this environment. The story of this environment is that this network has been attacked and now has malware on it. We can see here from across the top, red and blue, attacks being stopped, and malware that has been blocked in the last 24 hours, and the number of devices protected on the right. This dashboard is not very interactive, and I think that's probably a designer's deliberate choice because it's designed for the executive view exactly as it says, and you don't want to overcomplicate that. You want to keep it very high level, make it very clear what's going on so that the decision maker can make the decision they need to make. Next, we'll take a look at security posture. A little bit more detailed, lots of different visualizations in this one. Again, the use of color, they've used red and blue here. These are showing up as red because it's considered as bad. If the number was different, it wouldn't be red, and you can configure those thresholds however you like. Like I said, a number of different visualizations, bar charts and graphs here. We don't have so much information in this because it's a demo environment, it's just been spun up. Going through to the network traffic dashboard, this is a good one to look at. This is the one that really tells the story of this environment. Number of different tables and different visualizations with effective color formatting. This is the panel of interest I wanted to show for this demo. Using these boxes here, we can filter to different things, and there's a numerous different ways to do that. We can type straight in there. Currently, it's populated with an asterisk, which is the wildcard character for Splunk, which means everything. Or we can click down in this table here, click on BitTorrent, and that will populate the filter up here at the top, and then we'll see all of the hosts and information that's specific to the BitTorrent app. We can see here, not important for this demo, but what we can see is that there's a number of hosts that have been using BitTorrent and accidentally downloaded some malware. But from the dashboarding point of view, we can see the different sort of panels and formatting options and the different ways to add different filters and how to populate those filters by using the drill down actions. Next one I wanted to take a look at is under the Advanced Threats tab and Network Anomalies. This panel down at the bottom is one of my favorite panels that I get to show off because it shows, as it loads, access anomalies rather, because it shows one of the real powers of Splunk. It's taken information from disparate data sources and giving you conclusions that you might not have been able to find if you were operating in data silos. So here we have geographically improbable access. We can see here that the user E. Belford was in the city of Giza in Egypt, and then a very short time later, he was in Japan. Just for a bit of information, or a bit of fun, you can see there the speed at which he may have had to travel to make that condition true. He'd have to have moved around the world at 1,281 miles per hour. And Splunk is flagging up that it's very improbable that this one guy is in these two places at such a close period of time. And what I said about bringing data together and not keeping it in silos. So in one data repository, you have the fact that E. Belfield has logged in. And in another data silo, you have geographic information, and you stick those two together, and you can see here that this guy is probably not whizzing around the world like Superman, and you may have the indications of a compromise of this account. That's all I wanted to show in the InfoSec application, so we'll go back to the PowerPoint. So the last thing I wanted to speak about is the upcoming events. Somerford are always running workshops and events. If you want to find out what's coming up, navigate over to the website and have a look, somerfordassociates.com/events. And we can see here the specific Splunk events, but we do events in other technologies too. Check out all the upcoming webinars and workshops that we're hosting. And if you want to join, just click on the register button, and sometimes you even get a little goodies if you join. If you have any questions, please feel free to email info@somerfordassociates.com. That's questions about Splunk or dashboarding specifically, but also any wider questions about Somerford and Splunk in general. Thank you for attending this webinar. It's been a pleasure to speak to you about dashboarding. Hopefully you learned something, and for now, goodbye.